What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Cult of Recreationalism podcast. I am one of your hosts today, Nathan Morris, along with Sean Lake. And today on the podcast, we've got Dave Durante. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you guys for having me. Good to be here.
Awesome. Dave, I wrote up a little intro for you.
Do you mind if I take it for a rip? I want to jump right in and feel like I can be a part of this conversation. I kind of like how you primed him there.
Take the intro, Sean.
So, Dave is a husband. He is a girl dad.
Yes.
He is the founder of Power Monkey Fitness, and we're going to dive into what it means to be a power monkey. He is a gymnast. Not like some of our friends like to say they're a former something or other. He is a gymnast. Dave was the 2007 United States all-around gymnastics champion. He was an alternate for the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing. He speaks fluent Italian. He's going to do this entire podcast in Italian. And welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. There was some tidbits in there I don't even have in my own bio.
Well, we're here to to augment that and make it a little something extra.
Appreciate it.
Boost it up.
That was great.
Nathan, I understand there's some interesting facts that you would maybe like to share about Dave now that I've done the intro.
Oh, well, there's just some stuff I had in here. They were kind of just more like if we ran out of things to talk about. But no, the first one, because all of us here do CrossFit. Dave, you wrote the CrossFit gymnastics curriculum.
I was part of CrossFit Gymnastics staff. I was a lead coach for them for a few years back in the day, 2013 to 2015. Was when I was kind of just starting up Power Monkey, and I didn't write the CrossFit Gymnastics curriculum. I wrote the advanced course. There was a period where there was an advanced course that had been put out where we were doing some higher level skills, and I was kind of put in charge of putting that curriculum together. After I left, I think that program died, and they might have tried to, bring it back together under a new name. But there was a period where I had written and developed the advanced course for CrossFit.
Yeah, that was always a fascination. I mean, at least originally in CrossFit was this blend of the world of gymnastics, which was like this part of people's fitness that was just, somewhat missing. And it was like, you walk into a gym and you're already intimidated, and the people are throwing a bunch of weights around and kettlebells and barbells, and all of a sudden you see someone on a set of rings, and they might be doing ring dips, and you're like, oh, okay, I've seen dips before, like dips are in the gym. But then you see someone throw a muscle up down, and you're just like, what the hell is that?
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you realize, like, I'm going to learn how to do that? I'm going to get that? Like, okay. And it's fascinating. Like it definitely, for me, and I know for folks around me, like it unlocked a huge curiosity in, functional fitness in the CrossFit space to be like, well, what did gymnasts do? What it's not just a pull-up.
Yeah.
And it's wild, man. I mean, your ability to work your body with rings, without rings is cool. And I want to learn about how you got into it all. So you're from New Jersey, right? Originally?
Yep. I'm originally from, I'm a Jersey boy for sure. Just outside New York City is where I grew up.
And was it Jersey where you developed, like, hey, your parents put you in gymnastics at a young age? How did you fall into gymnastics?
I love sports. I grew up playing basically everything. Baseball, basketball. My father and my brother were soccer players. My father's from Italy, and soccer is a huge part of our family. I wrestled for a long time. I just love sports, and gymnastics was one of the ones that I picked up when I was 6 years old. And I was very fortunate to grow up in an area where not just gymnastics, but specifically boys gymnastics had a really big presence. And I got to give a shout out to my gym, which is, my first gymnastics family, Surgeon Elite School of Gymnastics. There's 3 locations, one in Garwood, the town that I'm originally from, Westfield, and then Roosevelt Park. And those gyms were just known for putting out some of the best gymnasts, collegiate gymnasts. There was another former Olympian, 2-time Olympian, Dominic Minicucci, who came through that gym, who was on 88 and 92 Olympic teams. And so you don't really find that too often. You don't, grow up and say, hey, I want to do gymnastics. And just fortunately, one of the best boys program in the country is within walking distance. So it was a proximity thing that really worked out in my favor, where it was down the block and I was able to kind of cultivate that love.
Well, they kept you engaged, right? Like, I've got an 8-year-old son, and I've watched him fall in love gradually over 3 years with baseball. And, like there was a moment there where he was on the fence and could have fallen off, and he knows he has to do activity, but I do give a little bit of free rein on choosing it. What do you want to play? What do you want to do? And right now, like, the love of baseball is like riding an all-time high.
How old is he?
He's only 8, so he started in kindergarten, like, or preschool, I guess. So he's actually pushing 4 years with it, but really 3 years where the skills are developing. And it's starting to get interesting at 8. I know I've seen the 9 and 10-year-olds play, but to keep kids engaged and to keep you engaged, like, that's a testament to the quality of the gym also, because you didn't get burned out. It didn't turn you off to it. You kept going.
It's so easy to get burned out too. I see this all the time, especially as kids get into their teenage years, where hanging out with friends and going to parties and those things start to turn up in your life and they become a little bit more of a priority. Going to the gym for 5 hours a day starts to become less important. And so you lean into, the community of the gym. And they had that in spades at Surgeons. Like, it was a complete family. In fact, my mom's closest friends to this day, she's in her mid-70s now, and her closest friends in the world are my gymnastics friends from growing up. We were a family from 8 years old. She had a party this weekend at our shore house in Jersey, and she had 25 moms over to the house for the weekend who were all former gymnastics friends of mine from growing up. And that's a testament to the type of environment that Surgeons put together for us, that not only did we want to compete and we wanted to perform, we wanted to get better at gymnastics, but it was a place where we actually found our best friends and the people that we ended up growing up together with. So it was a really special environment. I was very fortunate. It's not always that way.
No. And that's awesome, because obviously, like, it kept you engaged. It kept you wanting to go. And here, 25 years later, or 20,
More than that.
Yeah. I rounded down for you. And keeping the torch alive back east. So tell me about being, obviously you went into it. Was there any discipline that you started with? Because you were the all-around champion, which tells me that you were a Swiss Army knife. You could get into any aspect, pommel bars, like, you name it, and be lethal. But was there any one that kept you going, or was it like, nah, man, put me on anything?
Yeah, my strengths lied more in my performance ability. I was, there are guys that are kind of like daredevils that do like huge tricks, and there is a big component of gymnastics where throwing big skills matters, but I was leading into the sport being an autistic sport, and so mine was more about precision and being able to perform really well and execute well, as opposed to, because I wasn't very talented. I wasn't the kind of guy that picked up skills like in a day and it just kind of like naturally happened for me. I had to work my ass off, and so like I leaned into my work ethic and putting in the time that other kids weren't willing to do. My high school coach gave me a key to the gym my senior year, and I would go into practice at 6 a.m. and just do strength sessions by myself before school, because I knew that I needed to work on those areas and I wasn't going to get that time during my sessions after school. So for me, it was like, what can I do that everyone else is not going to do, that they don't have the willpower, they don't have the time, they don't have the effort, where I can catch up talent-wise and what these guys already have on me. So as an all-arounder, I was definitely not a lower body guy. My legs are still pretty pathetic, and I rarely wear shorts around most CrossFitters because I don't want them to observe the nothingness that is the Durante legs. But upper body events ended up being my strengths. But that wasn't until I got to college, and I started to develop more. I still was growing quite a bit as I went through my college years. So rings, pommel horse, parallel bars, high bar, those became my strengths. Those are the ones I kind of contributed most when I was part of Team USA and part of my college team. Floor and vault were ones that kind of, I was solid across the board, but not really ones that I would be looked at to contribute as part of a team when I was competing, for USA or for my college team.
Got it. And then you went to college.
Yep.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Stanford.
Oh, slumming it. Got it. Well, listen, some people skate by with a GED also. Was that a gymnastics scholarship, like rocket fuel in? Was it like, hey man, I want to go to the West Coast, I want to break out of Jersey? Why Stanford?
I went to visit the campus when I was 13 years old. We had the junior national championships in Oakland that year, and I went to the West Coast, and during that period, the mid-90s, Stanford was unstoppable. They won the national championship in 92, 93, took second in 94, and then they won again in 95. And they had some of just the best guys in the country. Josh Steins, Jair Lynch's of the world, Ian Backrack, and Mark Booth. These guys are big names in the gymnastics world at the time. And you walk onto campus. I was actually there over the weekend. I was with the team and got to do some content and see how the team was doing. And you walk onto campus, if you've ever been to Stanford's campus, it doesn't feel real. It feels like another world. And I absolutely fell in love with the school, with the team. And I said, this is the only place I want to go. And actually, I was a pretty good student. I wouldn't say that I was Stanford caliber, but it was the only place that I applied. I put my heart and soul into that application, and I tell everybody,
one shot.
Yeah, I didn't apply anywhere else.
Most parents do not agree with that strategy.
Yeah, and well, I did go on recruiting trips. I went on recruiting trips to Oklahoma, Michigan, and Illinois, which are other gymnastics powerhouse schools. But I only applied to Stanford, and I thought I would figure it out because I did early application. And so I thought I'd figure it out after that. And I always tell people that they saw my application, they kind of threw it out the window, and the wind gust just like blew it back in, and it ended up on the accepted pile. But even when the coach called me to tell me that I got in, he was surprised. He's like, I can't believe it, but you actually got in. So it
must have been that dual language, the Italian, they were like, oh, he really studies hard. He's got Italian.
Yeah, I spent my summers growing up in Italy, most of them, and I definitely put that experience of my father having grown up in Rome and all my family in Rome, and both of my parents being from a small village southeast of Rome. It's a unique experience. And I think aside from grades and aside from curriculum, and I get this from parents a lot, like, hey, what do you have to do to get into Stanford? I don't know. What I do know that when you have 50,000 kids applying to university and you have under a 4% acceptance rate, that they look for uniqueness and not just test scores. And they look for people that have life experiences. And I think that bode well for me in terms of me having seen the way other people live around the world and appreciating that part of being able to contribute something to an already bright community.
Yeah, I'd say hands down. I mean, I was making light of it, but the fact is, like, hey, if you speak 2 languages and now, understood, you spent your summers going to Italy, and I can only imagine that you've got the inside line on all the hipster travel to the Amalfi Coast. So when we're offline, I'm going to be picking your brain on that one.
You got it. I'll be there again this summer. Now I'm starting to do the same for my daughters now. We lived all last spring in Italy. I had them in school in Rimini on the East Coast, in a little beach town, and we'll be going back for this entire summer. So for me, it's something that I can give to my kids too, this idea of understanding how appreciating so much that you get to live in the United States, but also understanding, hey, your family's from somewhere else and other people around the world actually do things slightly differently, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but it's worth observing.
Yeah, hands down.
It's kind of cool, like, because Dave, I've gotten to interact with you. Like, this isn't I know you just met Sean today, like 15 minutes ago, but I've been lucky enough to be involved with like Power Monkey stuff. And I think it's cool that like when we're at those camps, like your daughters are there and they're a part of it. And there's people from all over the world and they're kind of doing their own thing, but they are interacting with all those. And I think it's cool that like they're along for the ride. They're not just like at home while you're out doing things.
No, I want them a part of it. It's part of their education to me. Power Monkey Camp to me, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit, but camp is my third child, my 2 little girls in camp, which I also consider a daughter, so I can be fully a girl dad across the board. It's a beautiful thing for us to experience as adults, but for my kids to be able to experience the way that adults interact together when you can get like-minded people together from around the world who maybe come from diverse backgrounds, but all appreciate the fact of living a quality, health-driven life. And I think taking them out of school for 2 weeks out of the year is 100% worth it. And my 7-year-old, after last camp, I think she came up to me and said, "What's going to happen to camp as you get older?" I was like, "I don't know. We'll see." She's like, "Do you like it here?" She's like, "Yeah, I think I want to run it when I get older," And she like put it out there. And I was like, it was one of the most proud moments I had in my life that maybe my kids want to be a part of what we had put together all these years ago.
That's awesome. Cool. How's it? And you're in Portland? Is that correct?
Yeah, my wife's from Portland, Oregon. So we moved out here a couple of years ago. getting used to the lifestyle in the Pacific Northwest. It's absolutely beautiful out here. But coming from the New York, New Jersey, fast-paced mentality, I'm still getting used to the driving speeds of the Portland roads. Not quite there yet.
I can only imagine the hell that you are inflicting on others just by laying on your horn.
Oh, my wife, first thing when we moved out here, she said, you're not allowed to touch your horn. Like, you cannot honk at anyone. Like, and I was like, what do you mean? It's like part of the car's technology to be able to let people know.
Yeah,
it's like, no, do not honk at anyone.
It's a public service announcement when I jam on that thing to let them know they're probably making a mistake.
They're camped out in the left lane. I have to let them know.
Yeah, exactly.
Nope, that's just what they do out here. I was born and raised in suburban Massachusetts, so learning the aggressive driving.
You know what it's about.
Yeah, and I swear I've gone soft out here. And
you're in California now?
I've been in California for 21 years.
Yeah.
It chips away. You get cold easy, and you realize you lose that hardy winter touch, and then you start driving, and you're just like, yeah, and then you forget, like, hey, no, if you're in that inside lane, that's hammer time. Get out of the way. If you're not the one passing, get out of the way. That is not baked around the West Coast.
Not so much.
So back then, so we talked about being, the U.S. all around threat, but take me up to 2007, where I'm assuming you're done with Stanford, right? You've graduated, or you're finishing school, and you're heading into a shot at the Olympics. Was that by design? Was it just, hey man, like I'm having a good run? Tell me about that chapter, because I think it's a fascinating event in anyone's life to be able to take a swing, at a spot on the Olympic team.
Yeah, sure. So I graduated in 2002, and then I stuck around Stanford for another couple of years to 2004 to train for the Athens Olympic Games. And I just made national team in 2003, and I actually made a really strong run at the Athens Olympics. I made it to the Olympic squad, the last 10 guys to be kind of finally selected for the Olympic Games in Athens. I thought I did enough, but I was a young guy on the team and not much international experience. And the team that ended up going to Athens was one of the strongest teams the U.S. has ever put out on the floor. It took silver medal. They're a legendary team in U.S. gymnastics history. But they kind of fueled my interest to try to stick around for another 4 years. And so I moved to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs in 2004. And I lived there for the next 4.5 years while I trained for my last run at trying to make an Olympic team. And during that time, I was on a few of the World Championships teams during that quad. As you mentioned, I became national champion, the all-around in 2007. I was the winter national champion in 2005 and 2006. So that quad, I was one of the top guys in the U.S. program. And so leading into the Olympics, I had a lot going in my favor. I definitely was one of the guys in the mix all the way through to the end process. And I don't know how much we want to get into it now. I've talked about it a lot over the years in terms of my unique Olympic qualification process. I had one that was maybe a little different than others because we had some issues with the original team that was selected. We had the two Hahn brothers who had already been on 2 other Olympic Games, and both of them were selected, and then both of them got hurt in the time from the Olympics qualification process through to opening ceremony. And so there were 3 alternates that traveled to Beijing, and we had a lot going on in terms of who's going in, who's not going in, or who's competing all the way up until the day before opening ceremonies. We didn't know who was actually going to be competing. And
that's
so
insanely stressful. Like if you're there,
yeah,
you flew over there. You were in Beijing.
I was there the whole time. We were there for about a month, 2 weeks before the games start, and training. In the village, some, and then training at the American College of Beijing, I think it was called, is where the USA had their facilities set up for us, and the Chinese gymnastics training centers where we were allowed to train. And so the experience is one that was completely unforgettable, but to say that it was an emotional roller coaster would be putting it fairly mildly.
I can only imagine. Like you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out.
Yep.
A buddy of mine, Mike Hazel, he threw javelin in the 2008 Olympics, and he talked about it because he just that wild ride about just like all of the years of leading up to it for that pinnacle moment. And, like for him, it wasn't his peak performance. His peak performance actually came afterwards.
Okay.
But like
That's
the idea of just like leading up to it, making it or being an alternate. And I have friends in snowboarding who were all alternates on the U.S. snowboard team. And a couple guys who made it and a couple guys who've gotten medals. And like just that whole range. And it is just, there's so much effort, energy, and emotion put into that. I can only imagine. And when you got back from Beijing, was there like, okay, I got one more run in me, or was it, I think we're good here? What was the takeaway?
Oh man. I was ready to be done basically 4 years before that. I knew that was my end date.
Okay.
And a few reasons for it. One, I was old. I mean, in gymnastics, they called me the grandpa of the team. I was 28 at the time, and I was absolutely the oldest guy by far on the team. And I was held together by like, athletic tape and Advil. And what I didn't tell many people was that February leading up to the Olympics in 2008, I tore my ACL in practice, but I didn't tell anyone except for my coach. And so I didn't have it repaired until I got back from Beijing. And so I had to have surgery basically as soon as I got back. And so had to deal with, and it wasn't, I had already torn that one once before. My first day at Stanford, I got into the gym, I fell and I blew my knee out my first day as a freshman. And then 10 years later in February of 2008, it's 98 and then 2008, I blew it out again. And so it's a different tear the second time you do it. It's more of like, imagine like a piece of taffy just getting pulled to the point where it just kind of pops on you. So I was able to do enough landings and enough floor and vault to be able to make it okay, but it definitely needed to be repaired. So had all that stuff cleaned up, and then I moved back out to Stanford and helped coach a team in 2009, and we ended up winning our first national championship that year and in quite some time. So that's when I started to get back into the coaching world.
That's a nice punctuation mark. I mean, the transition out, like you make it to Beijing, you go through all that. It's an emotional roller coaster. You're one leg down. You grit through all of that. And then it's over. You come home, you have to have surgery, which takes you completely out of the running. But then you get a completely different type of victory, which it sounds like was the trajectory of leading you into coaching, which, I mean, really since 2009, whether it be CrossFit, Power Monkey, and everything, you've been on that path ever since.
Absolutely. And I'll mention one thing. What the team did in Beijing, I don't get enough opportunities to talk. A lot of time when I'm talking about my Olympic experience, it ends with, the qualification process and then not being on the podium myself. But what the guys did, the 6 guys that ended up competing in Beijing did there is still, in my mind, one of the most incredible Olympic performances I've ever seen, not just because I was there and part of it in some capacity. I highly recommend everyone, if they ever want to see an amazing moment, go back and watch team finals from the 2008 Olympic Games, men's team finals. What the guys did, the 6 guys on the men's team did for USA to bring home a bronze medal that day when everyone thought that we weren't even a top 12 team was one that should be in the history books. They did an incredible job. So to come back from Beijing after that high of watching the guys perform, outperform what the rest of the world thought was capable was really impressive. And then that led into me doing something I never thought I wanted to do, and that was coach. I was never someone that wanted to coach. I was always very athlete-centric. I need to perform well. When you're an athlete at that level, you're worried about yourself. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of people think, because you want to optimize your years as an athlete. And I kind of fell into a love for coaching actually a little later down the road. The Stanford contract was just for 1 year. So I was like, I just want to see if I can win a national championship. I want my ring. And we were terrible when I was on the team. So I was like, there's an opportunity. This team is really good. They had finished second the year before. And I was like, maybe I can give them a little bit of something that can put them over the edge. And we ended up winning. And then I moved to Italy right after that. So it was kind of like I need to figure out what I'm going to do after gymnastics. And so it was a really nice way to be able to kind of put a cap on that part of my career.
It's interesting because it's almost what you recognize there's a split, right? There's selfish, which is the professional athlete, and you're doing everything for your performance and for your success and for driving it forward in the name of yourself, your country, like all the reasons. What are you humanly capable of? Like that push. And then there's the selfless, and that idea that you just helped someone else achieve their personal goal, their personal best. And that can unlock a whole new world when you help someone else achieve their potential. And they look at you and they know, like, hey, if I'm left on my own, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But they look at you, and I look at Nathan when I say that because he has this experience every day when he's at the gym.
Sure.
And you're helping someone unlock their human potential. You obviously have done it at the absolute highest level, but even helping someone do their first pull-up. I mean, I talk about it often, like that joy that someone experiences, but really the selfish joy and selfless joy of the coach.
I couldn't agree more with you. And what I would say is that you are selfish when you're an athlete, but what I always appreciated about competing in what most people think of as an individual sport, I thought of as a team sport. Gymnastics to me is a team sport, and Power Monkey is a team environment. And so the collective goal as we move forward is to be able to bring your expertise or something to the equation that makes the group better. And so moving forward in everything that we do now, it's okay, is what I'm doing now going to get maybe you a pull up or a muscle up? It's going to make you individually better. Awesome. I love that technique part. But I'm all about trying to get collective wins, meaning can we as a group, as an entity, work towards, goals that we set for ourselves as a team. And that to me is so much more worth pursuing more than an individual goal. And so I just love the ability to kind of continue to work with my team, with Power Monkey, and to see new people that want to be part of the team, and to continue to collectively work toward team goals. For me, that's my highest challenge moving forward, is how can we continuously work towards team goals.
That's one of the, I'm going to cut in here so that's one of the cool things about like Power Monkey Camp is when you're doing it, like I'll let you talk about it in a second, Dave, but like you've divided it into, like, with you, it's the handstand station, there's rowing, there's kettlebells, and you're working through it as a group. And my experience to it, like, it was cool because like we were all, even though we were different skill levels within my group, we were working together, like everybody's trying to level up one as we're going through this. And that was really cool to like do all of those things as part of a team, like you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the team aspect of camp, and like what has come out of camp is much more than I think we ever envisioned when we put it together. We wanted to put a good like technical week together. We're putting all these experts in one space and someone getting like an adult fitness camp environment again. But the experience of feeling like, you know what, like we're better together than we are individually. And that's something that comes naturally and organically through the week of being able to say, I might be from a different background, demographically, age group, fitness level wise, it does not matter. Like we are all here trying to become just incrementally better, just a tiny bit better than we were yesterday. And that is incredibly powerful in terms of when you're done, knowing that you have people to lean onto and to be able to reach out to, no matter where you are in the world. You have somebody who's had a shared similar experience to be able to say like, hey, I know that person knows what I'm going through. I can lean into them and have them as a resource if needed moving forward. And to me, that's one of the most powerful things that's come out of Power Monkey Camp, is you have people to lean into to be able to collectively move forward together.
Yeah, and can you actually take 2 steps back and, like, for people who don't know, can you explain what Power Monkey Camp is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sean, I don't know how much you know about it. Maybe Nathan's passed it along, and obviously Bub's a part of it.
I'm trying to get him there in October.
You got to come, man. It's a blast. But it's an adult fitness camp, a full week adult fitness camp out in the woods of Tennessee. I've been going to the facility for close to 20 years now. It's owned by 2 Olympic gymnast buddies of mine, John McCready and John Roethlisberger, kind of legends in the sport of gymnastics, and they run it as a kids gymnastics camp throughout the summers. It's a 150-acre campus, 32-acre lake. We now have 50,000 square foot of gym space, 17 cabins. We bring in an amazing chef from Rosie Joe Meals, Katie Wells and her team, who, you know, feed a lot of the CrossFit Games athletes and have done the games over the years and do the NFL Combine now. She's amazing, and so she makes incredible food. Yeah, the food's amazing, and
good.
got a ton in the kitchen this time around too. And we bring in experts in a variety of different training fields, specialists in gymnastics and weightlifting, kettlebell training and rowing, jump rope, running. We do seminars on nutrition and mental training and contrast therapy and sleep optimization and programming. We do yoga in the mornings. We do rucks in the mornings. It's kind of an all-encompassing adult, you know, like Disneyland kind of a setup. And so, yeah, it's turned into something that, you know, 100 participants. We bring out about 50 to 70 staff and guests and coaches, and about 150 people. We train and eat and bunk up together for an entire week and come out better on the other side.
That is awesome. So was this born from CrossFit? Because somewhere in gymnastics, you developed a relationship with CrossFit in general, and then from CrossFit into Power Monkey, right? But
Yep.
I feel like Power Monkey serves more than just the CrossFit community, although probably a lot of CrossFit in the community.
It has started to expand beyond. I think initially it was, we've always been, I think all of my coaches will speak to similarly to this, in that we've always been eternally grateful to CrossFit for exposing people to our niche sports, as opposed to some people within gymnastics or weightlifting who look at someone doing a muscle up for the first time and saying, what the hell are they doing? You know, like they're taking a beautiful movement and they're making it look like shit. And it's just like, why are you doing it that way? And you're bastardizing our sport. All of our coaches have always said, this is incredible that we have somebody who's 50 years old that's never done a handstand before wanting to walk on their hands or do a good handstand push-up. Let's facilitate that process. We look at it as an opportunity. And so CrossFit gave all of us a chance at making careers out of something that we loved that was not present prior to CrossFit. And so, I mean, gymnastics specifically, prior to Glassman, you know, starting up in Santa Cruz, what did we have? Post gymnastics, you have go to the stunt world, which is what my business partner does in Power Monkey. He's a stunt man. You can go to the circus, which is what a lot of my college roommates are doing and did. Or you can go and coach at a gym or open up a gym. Those are your three avenues if you want to stay within the sport. CrossFit has completely given us a new avenue to be able to give our passion to people who didn't grow up with it. Not working with kids, but working with adults. And so we've taken that idea and kind of run with it and say, let's try to make you as good as you can possibly be and understand technique to the absolute, you know, smallest level so you can make changes that an elite athlete would be doing and be able to pass that on to as many coaches, owners, and athletes as we possibly can. So we look at, you know, our community grew because of CrossFit, but now it's expanding beyond CrossFit because obviously functional fitness has started to grow beyond just, you know, doing wellness these days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like the idea that CrossFit can open that up again, that blending, right, of aerobic activity to gymnastics to all the different lifts and leveraging weight for that unknown, unknowable, like that combination was magic then, it's magic today. And it just gives your average athlete off the street exposure to this much broader, bigger world. And sure, the purist can hate the idea that a guy like me at, you know, when I was 39 years old, I could go into a gym and learn how to do the ugliest muscle up you'll ever see. Whereas to me, I now have this appreciation for gymnastics that I never had for 38 plus years. And so all of a sudden I'm watching the Olympics in a whole different light. I'm having kids and I want them to have that exposure for body control, for understanding what they're physically capable of. And so I find it to be magical. When you guys were thinking of the idea of Power Monkey, and like, take me to like the idea phase of like, we're going to do this. This seems like we're filling a gap and there's an opening in the space. What was that origin like?
You're saying specifically for our camp? Or
for the Power Monkey camp, like, because I think it's a neat way to start things out.
Yeah, so camp grew out of, as I mentioned, I've been going to this facility for close to 20 years, teaching kids in the summers, and so I knew the facility, I knew how magical of a place it could be for the kids and for us as counselors, and after hanging out with people like Chad Vaughn, two-time Olympian on the weightlifting side, and Mike Service, another USA team member, and then getting to know people like Dave Newman at Arc Smart Gear, started to come to this idea of saying, this facility is not being used in the fall and spring very much. We could turn it into something that, why not bring in all these experts instead of doing, we were doing weekend seminars of gymnastics and weightlifting often, and going to gyms around the world, and people were eating it up, and they were loving learning, technique from me and Chad and the rest of our team who we had pieced together at the time. And we just said, could we turn this into a full week of camping? And many of us had done camp growing up. I went to gymnastics camp, every year when I was a kid, and it was one of the, some of the great memories of my childhood, learning gymnastics out in Pennsylvania at IGC, International Gymnastics Camp, out in the Poconos, and I just loved it. I wanted to be able to create that atmosphere again, but now maybe with a beer while you watch, have a s'more at the campfire kind of a thing. And so we put it together. We didn't know what was going to happen. I always mention Dave Newman's name because Dave was critical in getting our first camp off the ground. He was such a believer. He was actually friends in San Diego with one of the owners, John McCready, who grew up down there, and they had known each other kind of growing up. And so he was like, I remember McCready, of course, I'd love to be a part of this. And he brought out a ton of games athletes to help promote the first camp. And we ended up having like 30 coaches and 30 participants. And so the campers absolutely loved the experience. We didn't know what we were doing yet, but we put on a great week, and I didn't know if people were going to want to come back, but something happened at the end of the week that told me that we had something special in our hands. We had a couple of international people. We had some people from Italy, actually, some people from Ireland, some people from the UK. And that first camp, everyone was getting on the bus to go home the Saturday after camp, and all the campers were crying. And they didn't want to leave. They had become incredibly close with this group of coaches and other participants over what was seemingly a really short period of time. Over the course of just a week, they became lifelong friends. And I said, you know what? For as much as this camp was intended to be about information around technique, this camp is going to end up being much more about the relationships. And that's exactly what ended up happening. And so people continue to come back, not because the content changes drastically, but we have one camper that's been to camp 14 times, and it's because it's home for her. Yeah. And it's as much as it is home for us.
That's 14 out of 21.
Yes. 14 out of 21. And she became staff this last time. I got to give a shout out to Karen Ward. She's an affiliate owner in Atlanta herself. She's an incredible, absolute gem of a human being, and we love her to death with Power Monkey. But we have tons of people who continue to come back again, not because of the information so much as it is just a part of who they are now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, that's just inspirational. It's like when you're listening to this podcast, you're like, you know what? I wanted to learn a little bit more about fitness. This goes way beyond gymnastics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You've got rowing. You've got Chad Vaughn participating or was participating. Like, it sounds like there's several different buckets here. Nathan, what's your experience like when you go there? I mean, you have a lot of experience in CrossFit. You own a gym. You're a coach, but you've gone a few times now.
Yeah, I got lucky enough I dropped in for one night once a long time ago, driving an RV around the country. And then I went out once as a camper. And then this last time I went, I was like campside, like support staff. And as a camper, it's awesome. Like I mentioned, like you're working with your group, you're all kind of moving through these stations together. But the big thing that I was actually I'm trying to get a couple of my members to come out in the fall or in the spring, Dave. And I was talking to them and I was like, they have learned all this stuff by like Googling, like learning it from other CrossFit coaches, or they're following like high level CrossFitters on YouTube who are teaching. Not that they're going to teach rowing wrong, but they're not learning rowing from someone who's been to the Olympics for rowing or been to gymnastics been to the Olympics for gymnastics or weightlifting. And to hear it from somebody who has been doing this since they were a child. Dave probably gave, I like this cue the best of, if you're going to set up, Dave teaches the handstand station, Sean, for reference. When you're setting up for a 1-rep deadlift or a 1-rep squat, you don't just run up and go into the bar. You set your feet, and then you go into it that like you set your feet first. Well, in a handstand, your hands are your feet. So why are so many people just trying to fly up into a handstand position? And when you said, I'm like, that makes so much sense, but I've never thought of it that way.
So it's simple cues, right? That just unlock the potential for what the movement is you're trying to do.
Yeah. And there's like, and that was one nugget from one station of 10 stations.
Yeah.
And that was what stuck with me. I'm sure he said other things that other people in my group, they were like, oh, and that was the light bulb for them. But it is so cool. It is the community. I'm still in contact with some of the people I went to camp with, some of the coaches who I formed a relationship with, like just texting random memes to and stuff. Like it's so cool. So
not bad. So Nathan and I, in talking, Dave, before you came on, because now I feel like we got a good handle on the various elements of Power Monkey, which is like, it's going to be a dream for anyone who's kind of curious. Like, I'm going to look this up, and I want to know more about what I would learn at a camp like this. And we're talking like, you could be at a, Barry's boot camp, you could be at a CrossFit gym, you could be at F45. Like, these are skills that translate across, any gym setting or any athletic setting. So it seems like anyone who wants to advance their skill sets or learn more, there's a home for you there.
Well, it always amazed me how many people, there was 2 people in my group last year who had never done CrossFit before. And I was like, how did you find out about this? Like, I thought this was like a niche within a niche. Like, how did you find out about this?
It's trying to expand a little bit more just beyond the CrossFit setting, which is great. But, everyone is welcome. And I think sometimes people get a little scared when they see the promotional materials and they see games athletes there and, some of the top coaches. And it's a little intimidating. But really, camp is geared and put together with the beginner and intermediate level athlete in mind. The person that is scared to kick up into a handstand or never has done a snatch before. Or how do you, handle 2 kettlebells at the same time? And it's meant to really foster a very base level understanding so that everyone is welcome, no matter if you were at the top of the podium or if you said, you've never picked up a barbell before. So
yeah,
you'll feel welcome no matter if you're the fittest person in the world or not.
I mean, that's great because that removes a level of intimidation that would probably be a barrier to entry where folks wouldn't consider spending that much time, money, energy to go to a specialized area if they think they're not good enough to start. It's like one of the things I always loved hearing in gym settings was, oh, I can't go to that gym. It's too intimidating. I got to get fit to go there.
Yeah.
So I have to not go to that gym to get fit, so be good enough to go to the gym. I'm like, well, that doesn't really work. That's called the excuse to not go at all.
Right.
Or you just take the step in and realize that, hey, man, they're going to scale things out for you and help you out there. Well, Nathan, I'm going to turn this one over to you because you had some phenomenal one-off questions that I think Dave is warmed up and ready to answer.
Yeah, Dave, clear your mind for me. Just clear it completely. Don't think of anything. What was your first job?
My first job was, all right, I grew up Jersey Shore kind of a guy. I have a house in Belmar, New Jersey, where they did some of the shooting from Jersey Shore and that kind of stuff. And around the block from my house, there was a ski shop, like a ski, snowboard, surf shop, Eastern Lines. And Eastern Lines had, in the summers, a trampoline out front. And one time I went over and I started bouncing a trampoline and was doing all this crazy gymnastic stuff. And they were like, do you want a job? And I was like, to do what? And they were like, all you have to do is bounce on trampoline all day and attract customers. So for a couple of summers, I would just bounce trampoline and flip and get paid. And it was right around the block from my house on the shore. So I attracted customers to the surf shop in Belmar, New Jersey.
Did you know that Sean used to be a professional snowboarder?
Oh, really? Amazing.
Yeah. No, so I've got a couple buddies from Jersey that I'm going to hit up. One of them is like the director of sports marketing over at K2, and another one's like a longtime Patagonia guy. And literally my nugget away from this is I'm going to hit them up and be like, do you guys remember Eastern Lines? You guys ever go there?
Eastern Lines. Yeah. Ask them.
They will.
Still there.
That's amazing. Well, so I worked a little bit with Danny Cass. Also, proud Jersey resident, 2 Olympic silver medals. When I was referencing having friends in snowboarding who have made it to the Olympics and performed there, He's one of them, 02 and 06.
Mhm.
But yeah, proud Jersey representing on the
man.
podium.
I know a lot of people talk shit about Jersey, but I love it.
Oh, you can, but it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, as the mass hole on this,
there
this
you go.
podcast,
You understand.
I'm restraining myself. I'm restraining. Nathan, next question.
Yeah, so you talked about Jersey Shore. Did you ever live that GTL lifestyle?
I did, and it's embarrassing if you go back and see some of the photos. I mean, I was in gymnastics a lot, but my friends, that whole lifestyle is very real. I don't know if it's like that anymore, but when I was growing up, yes, extremely real. And one of the main club's DJs I could see it from my balcony at my house. So I was very close to where a lot of that nonsense happened.
Nathan, key takeaway, when you're assembling the social media assets for said podcast, I expect a little Paulie and some of the boys there to be flashing on the screen. Just flame it out a little bit.
Oh, I'm going to send some texts. I'm going to get some pictures of Dave from back in the day to throw up there.
There we go.
I've got numbers I can call. What was your dream job growing up, Dave?
So I always dreamt of going out to California, and growing up on the coast, I love the ocean. I want to actually do marine biology. I ended up studying human biology and getting into the human body, and it's helped with my career in fitness, but I just love the ocean. I love being by the water, and so marine biology when I was a kid was always a dream.
Do you surf?
I surfed a lot growing up in Jersey, believe it or not. There are some good breaks, and so I did that. And then when I was at Stanford, I used to go to Santa Cruz with some of my buddies, and we would go surf Santa Cruz every so often, but I have not gone surfing in many, many years now, unfortunately.
That's because those wetsuits are real thick up in your neighborhood.
Brutal.
You're heading to Pacific City. It's going to be it's a pretty brutal outing in there.
No joke.
Yeah. What's your favorite bourbon?
Oh, all right. Excellent. A Vermont-based bourbon, Whistle Pig. So I'm not sure if you know Whistle Pig. They are freaking phenomenal. I actually
I might have a bottle, actually. I think I do.
They obviously have a bunch of different. Their Boss Hog is their kind of top tier, which is amazing. When me and my wife had our second wedding anniversary, I convinced her that it was a great idea to go to Vermont, and secretly it was a way for me to go to the distillery and go check out Whistle Pig. So yes, while I spent a lot of time in Tennessee for camp, I am more of a Vermont whiskey guy. So I love Whistle Pig.
Sean, you want to ask a couple of these?
Well, you know what? You're rolling right into my childhood here with this one. Who's your favorite X-Man and why?
Oh man, I'm a huge comic guy. Do you watch X-Men 97? So this is the new show on Disney. It's awesome.
I just watched the first one.
It's so good. It's so good. But I would say that my favorite X-Men is probably Nightcrawler. I love Nightcrawler. I felt like he was a little bit of a gymnast with all of his flips, and I love the teleportation. What he could do is one of the things I wish I had if I was ever a superhero. So I'm a huge comic guy for sure.
Solid answer. I mean, it's very on brand. Nightcrawler would be my go-to for you as well. Just life in the circus, and then having to do all the gymnastics. You know what? Genuine curiosity on the next question: what is a cookie rollout?
Okay, what?
What is a cookie rollout?
I don't know.
Sadie told me to ask that. Or she said, she's like, maybe ask like the thoughts on like hate, like if there was like something that like freshmen at Stanford in gymnastics had to do.
Oh, that.
I don't want to say hazing, but maybe that's what it is.
We can't say that anymore in 2024.
I don't think this is allowed anymore. But back in the day, one of the things that the Stanford men's and women's gymnastics teams used to do was roll out, and it was a welcoming to the new freshmen to being part of the team. And it would be like you get rolled out at like 3 a.m, and they bring you out to the middle of campus. And one of the things they said, Stanford Gymnastics loves cookies, and so they would put us into the fountains. There's one in the main area by the bookstore, the Claw, which is a famous fountain on Stanford's campus, and you go swimming in the fountain, and then they cover you in flour and chocolate and eggs and like just a mess. And then you like play all these games around campus like for hours, and then you go to the first class, which starts at like 6 a.m, and you're just covered in all this shit. And you go and like welcome all the students as they come in. And my freshman year, I was in the main quad, covered in this, and the president of the university was going to his office. He comes over and he's like, "What is going on over here?" And I was like, "We're cookies." And it, very professional. Gerhard Casper at the time, the famous Stanford president, he loved it, and he thought it was so funny and so fun. He actually took a picture with us, and I have a picture with Gerhard Casper, and covered in all. He's in his suit, getting ready to go to business meetings for the day, and we're just a complete disaster at 6 a.m. So it was one of my favorite memories. So, yeah, it was a great memory.
The other version of that is when he gets really pissed off and kicks you off campus. But
yeah, exactly.
I like your version way better.
Exactly.
So next up, what is the meanest comment you've ever received on social media?
Social media. I hate social media. Unfortunately, I know it's a necessary evil for our world. But those things. So this past weekend, I was back out at Stanford, and I shot some content with one of the guys that just graduated, Ian Gunther, has an enormous following in the gymnastics world. He has over 1 million followers on YouTube now. We did some content, and we did some things around lifting with him. So I did like some gymnastics stuff, former gymnast, current gymnast. And then I had him pick up a barbell and had him try to squat and try to do a bench press. And he's like, "I've never done a bench press before." And so I was like spotting him on a bench press, and I was looking at the comments in there, and somebody's like, "This loser has no idea how to spot a bench press. The worst spot I've ever seen on a bench press in my life." And I don't know if it's the worst one, but that's the one that I saw today, and that's the one that stuck with me, that I didn't know how to spot a bench press. I was like, I thought I was doing a pretty good job.
Dude, the keyboard cowboys are just
trolls,
ruthless,
it's phenomenal.
endless, and it is what it's like. I got slammed 2 weeks ago because I put up an Instagram story, and I was doing a little Murph workout prep, and I had a weight vest on. I was out in the park, and I just set up a camera because, like, like every once in a while I want to like fire it up, and I'm just doing a round of like 20 push-ups, and like I'm a puddle. So apparently I wasn't locking out to absolute full extension. I was like,
Sure.
Here, and sure enough, I'm getting pounded on. No rep. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, if we're in like a CrossFit paid competition, sure.
Exactly.
But I'm breaking a sweat and getting some work done. So what do you care?
If I remember right,
yeah.
you're in the park and your kids were playing like soccer practice. Like,
Yeah. I mean, make use of your time. My kids are in flag football. I have an hour. I have to stay on the field. So I busted out my weight vest and I did a bunch of work because I'm there. And I'm sure that some of the other parents looked at me like I had, was from Mars, but what do I care? Like,
Yep.
I'm going to use that hour to the best of my ability. And, like, that's what you do.
All
right. Hold on. Before you do the next one, Sean, Dave, because you were talking about the videos you just did. I went through the one it was the collab one between him and Power Monkey. And it was like gymnast versus CrossFitter.
Yeah.
And you got called out so many times of like, this CrossFitter points his toes really well. Like,
so when we shot that, I said, I'm a former gymnast like 10 times. And he's like, "No, that's not going to do well. You have to say you're a CrossFit athlete." And I was like, "I don't think I want to say that." And then, not because I love CrossFit, I've been doing it for forever, but I don't consider myself a CrossFit athlete. But he's like, "It'll just play better for the video." So he said, "I'm a gymnast and I'm a CrossFit athlete." And people were like, "This lies. He's not a CrossFit athlete. He's a former gymnast." So it was part of the video, but
that made me laugh. Sean, Sean, do the next one, and then let's just go back and forth, you me asking questions. But you do this next one.
All right, we're going to go a little rapid fire on this one now. What's your favorite pair of sneakers in your whole collection? And I know you got a collection.
I do. I love Jordan 1. So my J's are my favorites that I have. I have probably about 15 pairs. Let's see. Okay, I'll show you these. They're right here. So these maybe aren't my favorite ones, but these are the ones that I just got.
They're the favorite for right now. That's all that matters.
These bad boys.
Oh, damn,
audio
son.
listeners, they are shiny.
Yeah,
that's serious.
These are the full silver ones. They just came out recently. I got them for camp because there's a camp party at the end of the week, and I was an astronaut, and I thought that would really just put a cherry on my outfit. So
Any excuse to light $150
Absolutely.
on fire and
Absolutely.
just get there with all the flair. That is amazing.
He was an astronaut. I was a banana. Okay, next one. You've been all around the world, Dave. What is your favorite place you've ever been?
It's an impossible question to answer. So many places are just magical. I would, be voted out of the family if I didn't say Italy was top of the list because, from top to bottom, Italy is just a special place. Absolutely love Rome. It's just, if you can appreciate history, there's nothing like, fall in Rome where the tourists are a little down, and being able to appreciate the outdoor museum that is Rome.
And part B, you've been so many places. Where have you not been that you most want to go to?
I would love to go to New Zealand. It's on my bucket list. I've heard so many amazing things about it. I've been out that way, close by Australia plenty of times, but I've never been to New Zealand. It's on my list.
All right. What's your favorite hobby or an interest that's completely outside of fitness or gymnastics? Give me
I
something
haven't
you
done
love
it
to
in a
do.
while, so I love art. I love drawing and spending time. It was kind of my way of getting away from the sport when I was a competitive athlete. I did a lot of art. I apprenticed a portrait artist in Brooklyn for some time when I was living back in the city, and I did a lot of work with him. He was a pretty well-known portrait artist, so I apprenticed him for a while. And during pandemic, I picked back up kind of calligraphy as a way to kind of use some of that artistic talent. I haven't stuck with it nearly as much because life kind of taken over, but I would say art and that kind of stuff is where I would
Very
spend
cool.
my time if I had a little bit more. Yep.
That's cool. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I mean, it's there's been so many over the years that have really stuck with me. The Not one piece of advice, but going back to what we were talking about prior, the idea of shared wins being more important and better for the soul rather than individual wins. And I kind of live my life with that in mind, like what is going to be better for the collective rather than me as an individual. And it's kind of how I run Power Monkey. It's how I run my family. What is collectively going to be better for all of us? So for me, every day I wake up and say, what's going to benefit the group rather than me as a person.
Nice. I'm going to take a little more lighthearted on this next one. What's your favorite sandwich?
A tuna melt. I am a huge tuna melt guy. If you give me a good one right there, good cheddar on it, all day I'll go with a tuna sandwich.
There we go.
What do you do that annoys Sadie, your wife, the most?
Okay, I mean, there's plenty. Plenty. I mean, we have another hour to go through this. All right, I'll give you a couple. One, I'm loud. I am very loud. I am a loud New Jersey, obnoxious Italian that doesn't realize, the decibels that I speak of on a regular basis. And so she is a very, mild-mannered Pacific Northwesterner. And so I'm very loud, which she doesn't appreciate so much. I also take up the entire bed. And so, like, she hates the fact that, like, I'm a tiny human being and I am a starfish, like, just all over the place, which she doesn't appreciate very much. But I'd say those are easy ones to kind of knock out.
All right. Well, it's, sleep on the couch. Fine. Don't worry about it.
Often. Yep.
And this might tie into being on the couch. What do you do to relax?
Sports. I mean, watch sports. I am an enormous sports fan. So especially my New York teams, my terrible Mets, my terrible Giants, my terrible Islanders. I love sports and I just am in misery all of the time because my teams have been terrible for a good decade or so.
Well, hold on. You have one glimmer of hope, but you mentioned the Islanders, which is classic, right? You mentioned the Islanders and the Mets, yet your Rangers, and I'll say your Rangers, are your last hope standing here.
I know, and even the Knicks. I'm not a Knicks fan either. I grew up like a Jordan Bulls fan, which I hated the Knicks growing up. I like to see when New York is doing well. So like the fact that the Knicks had a nice run, awesome. Brunson is amazing, and I love seeing that. And I'm excited to see what the Giants can do this year. Even though everybody hates Daniel Jones, I want to see the guy do well. I want to see the Giants do well. So I just love sports. Anything Formula One. I'm a huge Formula One fan. I grew up with my dad being a Ferrari fan, so we used to wake up at 2 a.m. and watch Formula One races growing up. So I just if sports is on, I'm watching.
That's awesome. Yeah, easy way to just wind down, still get interested, still be fired up, but a little bit more passively from the couch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dave, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? We asked you a bunch of questions, but is there anything that you wanted to talk about we didn't ask about?
No, I love these questions, guys. You're getting to know me a little bit more than maybe even my wife knows about me. I might have to have her listen to the podcast and say, "Hey, did you know that I actually like this stuff?"
Did you know I took you to Vermont so I could go find a bourbon? Like
exactly.
Skip over minute 18 to 22, just to delete that part.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we kind of do these questions at the end. I feel like we should start doing them at the beginning just to get to know people a little bit better. So, all right. Well, Sean, let me do this part. I'll let you do the sign off at the end. But Dave, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for taking the time and for joining us today. If people want to learn more about you or Power Monkey, where should they go? Take some time, websites, Instagrams, promote whatever you want to promote.
Oh, thank you. You can head to powermonkeyfitness.com or powermonkeykcamp.com for all the events that we have coming up. Our next camp is going to be in the fall, September 22nd to September 28th. We have a couple of spots left over for that one. We do 2 a year. The following will be the end of next April. Like Nathan, you mentioned earlier that we're in our 11th year, so those will be Camp 22 and 23 for us. You can go to @DaveDurante and @PowerMonkeyFitness for our social media content on Instagram, as well as our YouTube channel Power Monkey Fitness, for our longer form content that we put out.
Boom. Well, as always, listeners, thank you for listening. You can find the Cult of Recreationalism on all of your podcasting services, and don't forget to check us out on YouTube or our social media @Bubs Naturals. Just look us up, and you'll find us. And please leave a thumbs up, maybe a 5-star. I don't know, whatever you're feeling you're on, and whatever you want to leave for us. And Dave, thank you so much for joining us today on the Cult of Recreationalism.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.